All right. So we're back with Picklock, and we have Connor Carson and Mary Georgescu, who are going to show us off another game that is physical, that you need to really be there to play it. But we'll do our best to get across how awesome this is. So, would you like to introduce your trailer before we started?
Yeah. Picklock originally started as a smaller mini game within a much larger narrative game, and as we sort of fell into smaller groups, as we realized the project that we were making was maybe just too large to make in a year, we really realized that Picklock had it really had some legs to stand on. We had a lot of really good feedback on it, and so we attempted to make a game and a controller that was as closely related as possible to the actual physical experience of picking a lock.
Right, so let's watch the trailer.
Yay! Oh, these picks will work. Now, just very carefully. Whoa. That. All right. Here we go. Just gotta have fine, precise movements. Nice. Yay!
Yay! All right. So I believe we have some of the gameplay footage, kind of demoing
Yes.
how the controller works. So would you like to tell us a bit more, like how this works, how the game works?
Sure. So I guess I can talk a little bit about the controller and what's going on here. So it's a physical controller that we built specifically for this game, and the controller has a pick that goes up and down, and a wrench that goes sideways, and that controls the overall puzzle. And the pick goes basically moves the little pin that you see. Um, Connor, you have anything to add on there?
Yeah, so the idea essentially was just that we were trying to, again, bridge the gap between the actual physical experience of lock picking and the way we could represent that in a controller. And so, for anybody not familiar with lock picking, you typically have two tools. You have that attention wrench, as Mary said, and that's going to sort of uh, place a certain amount of tension on the pins that allows you to move them up, and then they stay in place as you move them due to that tension. And then it will actually rotate the lock when it unlocks. And then the pick itself is used to move those pins up and down into the right alignment so that it can unlock. And so while as you can see, the puzzle is not so much directly related to the way the inner workings of a lock actually is. The idea was that these really precise, almost surgical like movements for the pick and the wrench would really closely resemble the physical interaction of moving those tools within an actual locking mechanism.
Marie, you have any questions, comments?
Yeah, thanks for making this. It really reminds me of my teenage years. I did pick a few locks, I'm going to admit.
Yes.
I have questions. What kind of questions would you like? Because I have questions about locks, and I have questions about physical controllers right now. Yeah. What kind of question would you like?
Those both sound great. Do you want to start with one about physical controllers?
Yeah. So tell me. Okay. So this is incredible. I love alt controllers. How can you allow the good people who are watching this to play this? Will you ship it from person to person? Like, can we start like a journey for this lock picking game?
First to you, Marie.
Montreal.
I think we were both initially imagining this actually being a game that you would experience in an arcade setting. But through prototyping and through actually doing some interviews with folks, we found out that most likely the place where this is best suited might be an escape the room. So we have a few different options. We could still work on it being in an arcade setting the way that we had originally intended, or we could go the route of maybe building it out so that it can work as a standalone game that people can play as part of an escape the room. So there are, I think, a couple of different things there.
Yeah, those would be wonderful. I also need to know about the locks thing. So
Yeah.
so tell me about your relationship to locks and lock picking. I want to hear about like the inner workings of your hearts when it comes to locks and things that are locked.
So initially, at least me personally, I didn't have a lot of experience with it. But when we were working on it in the context of the narrative game, we were trying to think how we could make a controller that would get players more interested in the narrative, more immersed in the narrative, and this was sort of the initial idea. And then we started to do research out of that, and I got a little too into it. Bought myself a pick lock set and some practice locks, and now I have a problem as a result of the game. But I love it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, I love that the game turned around onto you and you, yeah. And Mary,
like
what about
picking
you?
is like a heavy hobby. It's like, like once you get into it, it's like you're really into it.
Yeah. I think for me, I love exploring the relationships that we have with alt controllers, and this project, the more and more we worked on it, the more and more we were honing in on a physical experience that was giving us the emotional reaction, the same emotional reaction as though like you were at the point of picking a real lock. So I think this game actually is much more accessible than actually picking a lock. So it kind of gives everyone that ability to experience that high of like success without necessarily needing to struggle with the actual way of picking a lock. So we sort of were looking for an approximation using abstraction, and I think we came pretty close. Locks to me though, locks came from the character that we were working on, and I think I just fell in love with this image of a character who, based on our previous stories, was very independent and just kind of very self-reliant. So that's where locks sort of fit in with my heart.
I love this circular, by the way. Like it's more like how a locking feels than it is in some ways in this way. Like that's how it feels. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with this is kind of like the guitar hero of lock picking. Like you feel like you're actually picking the lock, but this is not quite what it is, but it feels like it, and that's the goal of it.
Definitely.
So yes, I think it was the end of our little segment, but thank you so much, Mary and Connor, for your game. Congratulations, this has been fantastic.
Thank
We
you.
hope that we can play your game in the flesh.
Yay.
The lock.
Yes.
Very
Thank
soon.
you both.